Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Joyce Keller back with you again. It's time for joy. I know people are not feeling that joyful, but we're alive. Excuse me, and we're happy. Well, happy as we can be. We're doing the best we can during this very challenging time as we shift energy on the earth. Yes, it's time for joy. Okay, I'm Joyce Keller. My website is joycekeller.com. And I wanted to give you the contact info, please, because I am live with Dr. Keller. We're going to be taking your calls, your emails. Let us hear from you, please. Okay? The number here, if you'd like to join me during the next 30 minutes that we're live on the air, here's the number, 516-666-8448. Again, give me a call. Here's the number. Write it down. 516-666-8448. It's time for joy with Dr. Scott and Joyce Keller. Dr. Scott Keller will be joining me shortly. While we have so much going on, it's hard to stay joyful. I know a lot of people are out of work. Everything is being demolished. Well, let's look at the bright side. We're being forced to change our energy, change our outlook. There's a possibility that things between now and the end of the year are becoming more challenging. It has to do with our energy and our outlook. How do we feel? How do we react to other people? What's really going on? What's really happening? We're here to give you an overview of what's really happening on the metaphysical or intuitive level. Again, it's time for joy with Dr. Scott and Joyce Keller. And because we are live, here's the number, 516-666-8448. A lot of calls coming in. While I'm live, and Dr. Keller is with me, the number for the address for my email, and I'm taking emails and looking at them as we speak and doing readings for you, trying to respond to whatever's on your mind. You can email me at any time, either on or off the air. It's Joyce Keller, JoyceKeller, TV, radio at gmail.com. Come on, let me hear from you. The best way is probably emails, just people don't have to worry about clearing their throats or anything like that. Okay. I wanted to tell you what I think before Dr. Keller comes on and gives you his overview of what's going on, and we try to work with you. I wanted to tell you I'm available for readings, consultations, lectures, whatever you'd like. I've written 10 books. It's all on my website, JoyceKeller.com. Not Kelly, it's Keller, JoyceKeller.com. Okay. I wanted to tell you that before we speak with Dr. Keller, there's a drug that's, I'm not in favor of any drugs, but sometimes when you have an epidemic like what we're going through now, this coronavirus thing, we have to rely on drugs. Okay, there's a drug out of Australia that is 100% successful. Please write this down, because doctors in this country, United States, all over the world, should be at least considering it also. I've had a lot of people write to me saying my mother's on a ventilator, my dad is going to go on to a ventilator. Okay, here's the drug. Please write this down. It's called ivermectin. I-V-E-R, mectin, M-E-C-T-I-N, ivermectin, in combination with doxycycline, which is an antibiotic that's been around like forever. Apparently, ivermectin in combination with the best antibiotic you can get, which in this case is probably doxycycline, and a zinc pack will cure it 100%. The people who are on this in Australia have a 100% cure rate, okay? So it's being suppressed, possibly. I don't know what's going on because that's political, and I don't want to become involved with that because I don't know what's going on. I don't become involved with the political aspect of it. What's going on with the election? Well, Trump is supposed to win. I feel that, excuse me, I feel that the election is going to be very messy with all its mailing in. This is the last time we're going to have an election like this because it's so vulnerable. It's so easy to mess with it, and it's so easy to destroy truth. So I feel that because of all the mail-in ballots that are being dumped and everything, Trump will probably win, but then there's going to be a week or so of battling, and then you're going to hear more from the Democratic Party. It says, no, we really won, and then it's anyone's guess what happens after that. But it was destined that Trump was supposed to win. I always predicted that, and now it's a battlefield. So, okay. I wanted to speak about, before we speak with Dr. Scott Keller, somebody's asking, do I channel the Arcturians? Yes, 100%, absolutely. The Arcturians are the space brothers and sisters, the umbrella energy. And umbrella, I mean, it's like over the Pleiadians, it's over everything. It's the highest part of our global system. Okay, it's a magnificent time. All right, this is a magnificent time to do the following things, please. And after I get my message, we have to start addressing the needs of our fellow man. This is all part of shifting out of the third dimension, which is one of just taking care of yourself and your family's needs. You have to think more about other people. We have to reach out to others. It has to be more of a loving vibration. We need more love on the planet. The shadow side of judgment has to be eliminated. And then you say, well, this is crazy because, I'm just barely even surviving. I'm not doing that well. I don't have enough money for groceries. Well, the government is helping those people who really are in trouble. So there should be a way of surviving. We have to get out of the fear pattern that we're in. And we have to be less critical of ourselves, more loving to ourselves and to other people and to strangers especially. We have to connect with our siblings if we've had a questionable relationship with them. We have to fix whatever isn't right. Our mother-in-laws, father-in-laws, whatever it may be, people we don't like, fix all of the above. It's called raising the energy of the planet. You can say, well, this is crazy because what's the connection? Well, if you're at all metaphysical, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not, then you have to start thinking about it. The key word here is altruism. And you can say, well, what is that? It's kindness to each other. And I'm fairly active on Facebook. I put messages in all the time, and people say, what? Okay, so I put a message in last night, one word, altruism. Be nice to others. Think about other people. If you see someone who's homeless, try to figure out, are they spending all their money on drugs? Like, what's really going on? Try to figure out how we can help each other, okay? The key to raising the energy on the planet is being aware of each other's needs, moving forward as a collective consciousness. Okay, and again, we are live. If you'd like to email me while we're on the air, Dr. Scott and I are here for you for another 28 minutes or so. And the number here is, give me a call, 516-666-8448. And my email address is Joyce Keller, tvradio@gmail.com. I was telling you about Dr. Keller. Yes, Dr. Scott is one of the most amazing people on the planet. I'm honored to have him as my co-host. Excuse me, I have Florida allergies. I'm allergic to alligators, so I'm not sure why. But in any case, I was telling you about Dr. Scott. He's an amazing teacher. He does a Zoom meeting on Friday. You have to join. It's incredible because it's free. And it's packed with wisdom, not only about Ayurvedic medicine, but about life and astrology. And I always learn from him. So even when he was a baby, I was learning from my son. I'm very proud to be his mother, Dr. Scott Keller. So, Dr. Scott, are you still there?
I'm here. I'm listening, and I'm enjoying every word of this. Thank you for everything you said. There's some monologue, too, by the way.
I'm sorry. It's very hard to hear you. Could Could we do something about the volume, please?
I said, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Not really, but that's okay. We'll do the best we can. It would be better.
Okay.
If you just come a little closer. Okay, please repeat what you said. Let's start again.
I said thank you.
Lovely.
I said thank you very much. I said thank you very much for that intro, and that was some monologue. And if you can hear me, I wanted to add a little something to what you said.
Yes,
you know,
now
with all
we can hear you perfectly. We can hear you.
Okay, so I'll stop. Thank you. I'll stop shouting then. I said that was a great monologue and a great intro. And in order to, continue our mission by getting the word out to people through this show and through our Zoom conferences and, through our many, many speaking engagements, and we have some really wonderful ones coming up. You can stay tuned, and we'll have all of that on our websites. I guess since you gave your website, I'll give mine as well. My website is www.ask-drscott.com, and you can reach us here at our office. We do many readings. We do a lot of individual and couples counseling here at our home office in Fort Lauderdale. That phone number for the office is 631-375-8702. Okay, so, each week, Mom, we get together and we try to do what we can to raise the energy on the planet and also to inform people like what is actually going on, because, I joined you as your co-host during a pretty pivotal time, right, when all this madness started, not only with the social structure, but with what's going on astrologically and Ayurvedically. It's our ongoing mission to be able to relate and to be able to have an interactive voice for people and to educate them on ways to use not only other metaphysical techniques like what you talked about moving from the third to the fifth dimension, but also to use tools that were given to us by the ancient Vedics, like astrology and Ayurveda, as ways to utilize these things to get a better life, both for our health, for our physical and mental health, for our relationships, for our karmic path, especially right now. I'm getting more readings from people who want to know what to do with this huge transformational time, and what to do with their new karmic path. They're leaving their job, they're leaving their lifestyles the way they used to be, because the big astrological players, as you know, for the last 7 months have been and continue to be the fact that Saturn, that planet of teaching us lessons, is in alignment with Pluto, the planet of death and transformation. So, Joyce, you said some really interesting things about what's going on with the presidential election. Each week I try to give, a little bit more guidance astrologically as to what's happening and why these things are happening. And I was wondering if I could share that with you again today. Are you ready to get into the portion of the show? Okay.
Yes,
so, here
yes,
we go.
Of course. Thank you.
So you know that the big players for the last 7 months have been the fact that Saturn and Pluto have been in alignment with one another with Jupiter. Jupiter is the amplifier. And a configuration like this hasn't existed in 600 years. In fact, the last time anything like this happened, we went through the Protestant Reformation, where basically Martin Luther stamped a Reformation on the Catholic Church and said, hey, boneheads, stop killing people if they profess to not be following the Catholic dogma. So they're not witches, they're not demons, they're just regular people. Stop torturing them. And then that huge pivotal time where we transformed, we entered the age of discovery. Magellan went out, Columbus went out, all the great discoverers, all the great artists came forward. Everybody became transformed. Well, that's what we have to look forward to. And everything that's taken place, predictions have been exactly accurate and based on the astrology. Now, we've talked about this transformation a lot, but let's talk about what's going on this week, because it gets even more, I would say exciting. It's actually a small reprieve.
Before you continue, though, Dr. Scott, you continue, please give today's date, because this show will be heard 24/7 indefinitely. So people need to know today is September 9th, 2020. So please keep that in mind first. Now, please continue. Thank you.
And if we could, put a theme on today's astrological and Ayurvedic description, we would say it's time for us to recognize how we have been a spiritual warrior. And I'm going to explain it. I don't know if anybody knows it, but the big news this week today is that the long-awaited Mars retrograde occurs right now as we're speaking. Mars goes retrograde for about 6 months. You know, when any planet goes retrograde, it means that the planet itself moves into a position in the sky where it appears to actually be slowing down or even moving backwards. Now, our brains perceive this as a time for us to look back. So retrogrades in general signify a time for us to go and review things we've done from the past, a time to retrospect over the actions that took place in the energy of the planet we're talking about. And the planet we're talking about, did everybody hear, is Mars. Mars is one of my favorite planets. It's super close to us. It in astrology, it's historically been considered to be malefic, which means it's not beneficial. That's not true. And just because it goes retrograde, it doesn't mean it becomes benefic, like it's the opposite. Anything is beneficial or anything can be detrimental based on your understanding. It's like martial arts. If somebody throws a punch, you just divert the energy a little bit. You don't meet it head on. Well, I believe it represents Mars retrograde, in my opinion, and so much of astrology, Mom, so much of astrology is subjective. I heard you've been my greatest teacher, and even some of the things that I steadfastly held true that I use in my healing practice and in the medical, intuitive, and astrological readings that we're doing, such great numbers now, has been based on what you've taught. And I don't know if you believe this, but you've always said, retrogrades represent a time to go back over stuff. Well, I believe when Mars turns retrograde, it represents a time for us to go back over our actions that had to do with that intense, impulsive, aggressive Mars-type actions that we used to do. And we ask ourselves, well, were those aggressive actions, productive for our personal growth? I don't know that many aggressive actions can be good for our growth unless they were fueled by an agenda of love and connectedness. Like I said, I don't look at retrogrades as being a bad thing. They're just a time to review the past. In fact, they can be quite enlightening and helpful for our transformation if we know that when Mars goes retrograde, things become a little bit weird. Now, this is what I was doing a little research on today in preparation, not only of today's show, but our Zoom conference. By the way, I thank you for mentioning that. We do a free Zoom conference for anybody who's interested. You just go on my website, www.f-drscott.com, or you can call the office and we'll get you right into a free link to get into the, that Zoom class is getting bigger and bigger. And Mom, thank you so much for joining us. You're always a great addition. People think you're hilarious. Everything it all gets so heavy, but when you're on, you always make us laugh. So many people think that when Mars goes retrograde, especially astrologers, they think that things get a little bit weird. And I think the operative word here is weird, and this is where we're going to come back. I just need another minute to get this out, but we're going to talk about the elections and how this relates to the elections, because it is so, so powerful and important for the elections. I noticed, so check this out, I've noticed that the slowing, when Mars goes retrograde, we see a slowing of that intense push, which we've been experiencing a massive push. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, I've been booking speaking engagements and appearances all over, even during the COVID crisis, which is amazing. Now, today, I'm kind of hoping, I've been maybe the only one hoping that things slow down a little bit. But the best thing that we can say about Mars going retrograde is that it's traveling through the 12th house. Joyce D., you know what traveling Mars is?
Mars is in what sign?
Well, Mars is in Aries, so it's still very aggressive, but it's traveling through that portion of the sky. Imagine a shooting star shooting through that section of the sky that has to do with your spirituality. It makes us ask the great question, have we been the spiritual warrior that this most recent transformation is asking for? Now, I try to teach very simplified astrology. Astrology can be very simple, and I like the way you taught me, Mom, just the basics. But to make it even more basic, astrology is like an algebraic equation. X plus Y equals XY. Know what X is, know what Y is, and you'll understand what X plus Y is. Mars retrograde happens to be, Mars is the planet of aggressiveness, and it's slowing down while it's traveling through the planet of spirituality, asking us to look back and see, have we been a spiritual warrior with our actions? I just got done saying, we're looking back at our actions. Typically, actions that are aggressive are not suitable for our transformation spiritually, but I've tried to be using a lot of those aggressive Mars-like actions as a way of promoting our journey and our mission here in order to help people through this crisis and, to understand their karma going forward. Now, I'm almost done. I want to just talk a little bit about what this means practically to us. Mars retrograde happens every 2 years. And the last time Mars went retrograde in the sign of Aries, Mom, you just asked, what sign? Mars is in Aries. The last time we had Mars in Aries going retrograde was in the summer of 1941. Now, we all know what happened in the winter of 1941, right after that. One thing we can say about Mars retrograde is that if you attempt to undertake any aggressive battling like Japan did and like Germany did, you're likely to come out on the losing end of the stick. Now, why is this important? Because this is a very interesting configuration when we're looking at the presidential race. Why? Because I believe whoever becomes more aggressive during this period of potentially, a potential aggressive period, whoever does that is potentially setting themselves up for disaster, just like Germany did and Japan did. Like I said, when Mars goes retrograde, things can get a little bit weird. So moving forward and pushing forward with a lot of aggressiveness is not necessarily the time for that. So also, at the same time, and I'm almost done, at the same time this week, we're not to forget that Mars, which is retrograde, which is in Aries, which is traveling through the 12th house of spirituality, is squaring Venus, our planet of love. Now, this can bring about potential friction in our personal relationships and money. Many of my clients who were getting readings last week said they saw this last week, but it's continuing this week. It often results in feeling that we're not being able to totally get what we want. And that's because when we enter a square, we have to slow down. So we're being asked to slow down from the Mars retrograde, and we're being asked to slow down from the Mars-Venus square. I think the general tone this week is exactly that, not to push too hard because these two configurations kind of come back to bite you in the butt. When Japan decided to invade during the same exact configuration, I think literally as the Hirohito sent out the order, he said, I think we've made a terrible mistake, and I think we've woken a sleeping giant. Yeah, and I think that's the best way to look at this week, just allow it to happen. So what do you think of all that, Joyce?
Well, I think that's amazing. I also think it's unbelievable that we have someone like Biden, who was barely alive, becoming very aggressive. Now, you were speaking about aggression before. Apparently his handlers, or whatever they're called, have told him, Biden, we want you to be aggressive because we know that Trump is not fooling around. So we want you to be at your most powerful, biggest powerhouse yet. We want you to be really, really strong. So he says, no problem. So he gets out there and he speaks to the public and he has a new aggression and he says, and Trump is not going to get away with this. And people say, is this guy serious? It's like, it's a big act. He's telling you to set up. And, so the public doesn't know what to do.
We've already seen some. No, that's a great point. And, completely apolitical. I'm a practicing Hindu. I only give money to Ralph Nader. Then I don't believe in this political system. However, if you were to look at what the Vedics predicted and what astrology predicted, there was only one person probably on the whole planet who could allow the prediction to take place, and that was a completely aggressive, I don't want to say very detrimental things about our current president. I don't really care one way or the other, but somebody who is so aggressive and doesn't care about his image and doesn't care about enough to be able to allow these predictions to take place. And that means because Saturn and Pluto, death and transformation and lessons, are in the sign of Capricorn, all the Capricorn represents structure, and those two planets represent destroy the structure. There's only one person on the planet that can destroy the structure. That's a complete ego megalomaniac. And, we'll say what you want about him. I don't really care. But I don't know that the other people from the other party would have been anything more than just business as usual. Now, in regard to this, I have to tell you something. I don't like to ever talk about politics with you, Mom. We never. You do. I usually stop. I don't. But during the public. Yeah, well, maybe we ought to do that. When I treat patients and, we treat people, doing readings and stuff, we're supposed to remain neutral. But something an interesting thing happened during the Republican convention, and I just happened to have heard it. at a time when we're entering a period where aggression is going to come back to bite you on the rear end, we heard Democrats complaining and criticizing Donald Trump for not being aggressive during his speech during the Republican his Republican address, the Republican convention address. They said, "Who is this guy?" They didn't have any fuel. They didn't have any fuel or fodder to be able to go after him because he was very passive. I said, Is this man an astrological genius that he knows now to take a step back and let the other parties self-destruct during a Mars retrograde? I don't really care because this whole system is going to be brought down after he gets elected anyway. We're going to, we're not going to have presidents anymore anyway. But how can every major government around the world is using astrology and Ayurveda as a way of gaining an advantage over the rival government? I would not be surprised. And I actually have a very interesting picture of Donald Trump with an astrologer from years ago. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he knew that this was the time to aggressively take a step back, because it was sure evident. It was evident during the Republican convention.
Well, he was married to Marla Maples, who did astrology.
Oh, my God.
So you're right.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. So
he knows astrology very well. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Well, listen, people who come to our office who are, really looking for help, people coming getting astrological and Ayurvedic readings, are asking what to do to mitigate all the difficulty that's going on for the world as a whole. And we simply say very easily, just look at your own birth chart. How do you get your birth chart? You get somebody to do it for you, or you go online. I mean, I do birth charts all day. And we look at where your Mars and where your Saturn, the two planets of where you make your correction, where they lie. For me, Mars is in Virgo. I have to not be so intellectual and mercurial and strategic about, when I go to battle. My Saturn is in Pisces. Don't be so caught up in emotional connection to people. Those are my two corrections. As I work on those two things, I'm able to help the whole. It's ultimately what's going to help us become, as you said, more altruistic and be able to serve the masses.
Excellent. That was a terrific introduction. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time. But I thought that was great. I wanted to say that couldn't have been better. And for those folks who don't want to be too technical about astrology, you make it very simplified. And I love that about you. And I wanted to also mention, I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but as you were growing up, there was always a little tiny printed out sign next to the door as you left and as you came in. And I recently found it, and it was very yellow. I don't want to say you're old, but it was very yellow and old. And I don't know if you remember this, but I wanted to repeat it. It was from Ecclesiastes 38:4. And I wanted to repeat this before we go off the air today in 1 minute. The Lord hath created medicines out of the earth, and he that is wise will not abhor them. In other words, I wanted that to be imprinted on your mind. I mean, you came in knowing that anyway when you were born, but I wanted to make sure you and your sister and your dad remembered that. Unfortunately, with this COVID thing, we might have to take some meds to get through it. It's a whole bizarre lab thing. But I wanted people to know that you are a holistic physician and chiropractor and healer as well, and you approach things Ayurvedically and in a very natural, beautiful way. And I approach things when I do readings intuitively. So I will channel a reading for you, and we'll cover all of the above. Someone asked me for a reading last week who said, I have something bothering me physically. I have a health issue. Now, legally, I'm not supposed to address that, but I said, sure, of course, go ahead. And we did address it, and it was a very simple answer, namely parasites. We all probably have parasites, but she had a particularly bad parasitic infection, and she could see the parasites under her skin. So, as you can see them moving around, and doctors had not addressed that. So I wanted to say that. And in closing, we have 22 seconds left. I wanted to say I'm JoyceKeller.com. We have the lovely Dr. Scott Keller, whose website is ask-drscott.com. We are here for you. We love you. Thank you so much for being with us, and we are out of time. God bless us one and all. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Dr. Scott.
Thank you. You're my pleasure.